There's no family history on our side at all of anything to do even with construction. So it was really myself and my brother who were the first ones to get into any sort of trade. It's not like we started the company together and it was even a little bit of convincing to get him to come on board first. I think he wanted to see that I was actually going to do something.
Today on the Curious Builder podcast, we had Emerson and Bredin on out of Ontario, and it was a really fun conversation just to hear a great entrepreneur mind. He's got 20 employees and really growing the business quite quickly. Towards the end, it was really interesting, just him being in Canada, us being in the States. It was really fun to kind of dive into what they're hearing on their side in terms of tariffs and price volatility. So without further ado, here's Emerson Bredin. Welcome to the Curious Builder podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. Today, I am joined by Emerson Bredin from Bredin Brothers up in Muskoka, Ontario. Did I say Muskoka right?
Yeah, Muskoka's right.
Yes. All right. Well, you're second Canadian. We had Caleb McDonald on in Toronto. I don't know if you know Caleb.
Oh, yeah?
Yep, he's been on.
What's his company?
Oh, shoot. I should know. Something Ridge
Are
Construction.
They're a builder?
Yeah, they are. Do a ton of remodeling. I met Caleb down at Contractor Coalition. Oh, man. How many years ago now? 2-3 years ago. And so he's come on a few times. We're doing a series called Losers Are Winners. Actually, I think his episode might air tomorrow. We're recording this on a Wednesday, which is unusual. Usually we record on Thursdays, but anyway, so his will air here pretty shortly. Kings Ridge Building Group. You know Kings Ridge?
Okay. I don't know off the top of my head, but I'll definitely look into it.
He's a good person. You should definitely check him out. He runs a top-notch company. In fact, Caleb and I have talked about it before, the Curious Builder Boot Camp, which I've talked to before on the podcast a little bit. He was kind of one of the first people that sort of woke me up to that, like, hey, there's a lot of builders that are into athletics. Obviously Canadian. I'm sure you play hockey too. I think you get kicked out of the country if you don't. And and anyway, he and I are running on the beach at the Contractor Coalition 5:30 in the morning, winds blowing in our face. And I was like, hey, you know what? We should really make a business out of this. So, in the years after, we sort of joked about it. So
that's funny.
Well, yeah, enough about that. Muskoka, Ontario. So it's on the lake. You kind of, from what I can gather, you specialize in like boathouses, which is really rad. Some of the work I was looking on your website is super cool. How in the world did you get into boathouse? Or am I wrong? That's just what you market.
No, there's thousands of lakes up here. There's kind of what is usually referred to as your big three, which is Lake Muskoka, Lake Rosso, Lake Joe. There's now essentially number 4 in there, which is Lake of Bays, where we're starting to do a lot of our work on. So we're in a town called Huntsville, and then there's a few lakes, Lake of Bays being one of them, which there's many lakes that make up that, where you can get out there within, a 15-20 minute drive. So that's definitely becoming more popular to people wanting to move up here. If you're on the other ones where you're Lake Joe or Lake Rosso, your little town that you would go to is Port Carling, and there's really not a whole lot there. There's some nice restaurants. It is very fun in the summer, but then in the winter it just becomes a complete ghost town. Now you're not up here in the winter at your cottage, but yeah, so that's one of the reasons why some of the lakes closer to Huntsville, Bracebridge, even Gravenhurst are starting to become a little bit more popular. Is just because when you're on that Joe or Rosso area, you are quite secluded from everything. As opposed to over here, if you forgot something, you could drive 10-15 minutes back into Huntsville, which is the bigger town that's up here in Muskoka. One of the other reasons is Joe and Rosso in those areas. That's where a lot of the big time cottages are, and it's been that way for a while.
Where are most of the people coming from? Are they coming from Toronto or other parts of Canada, or where do people?
I can't say most. I'd say 50% are probably from Toronto. We're doing one for a client right now. He's up on Georgian Bay. They're from Sweden, so I'd say half. So half are probably like born and raised Canadian or close to it. And then the other half are either from a different country, but a lot of them are still coming up from Toronto area. It's not bad. Like you can get up here, depending on when you leave, you could be stuck in traffic, but you can get up here within a couple hours. And so it's not too bad of a drive. And that's why it's become so popular. But Muskoka, like it's not even just those Toronto people. People come from all over the world to have a cottage in Muskoka and just the beautiful lakes up here and everything like that. I know there's different areas in the States that kind of have a similar lake luxury cottage scene to them. But yeah, that's kind of a little bit of
Yeah, that's
where
cool. How
we
did
are in
you
Muskoka up
were
here.
you from this area originally, or why did you decide to get into cottage building specifically?
Yeah, I always knew I was going to get into building. I was most interested on the actual like GC building side of things and a company. I essentially started in the trades as a carpenter and all of that. But I always knew I kind of wanted to get to that level. And I didn't necessarily want to start that in the town that I grew up in. So I grew up in a small little town called Paris, Ontario. It has developed quite a bit since then. That's about 3 hours from where I am up here in Muskoka now. But yeah, I knew if I wanted to get into it, like I might as well go and try to work for some of those companies that are building these $10 million cottages and just sort of get some of that experience, see how those places run. I'm a younger guy, so it's not like I was there for 15 years and then decided to go out on my own. But I have a buddy. His family always had a family cottage up here in Muskoka, and that's how I kind of knew the area. And so, yeah, I just reached out to one of the builders up here, asked if they were hiring, and then moved up here in some old lady's basement in the middle of nowhere and started working as a carpenter.
How old were you at that time?
21, maybe early
Was that
20s.
was that Braymark Homes?
No, Braymark is back where I grew up, the 3 hours from
Oh, I
here.
see. Okay.
Yeah, so that was down there. Yeah, there's one of the big
Yeah.
contractors. They are one of the bigger ones up here. They're also out of Huntsville.
So
That's who I
only
work
because
for.
it's kind
Yeah,
of funny, like I'd love, Cottage has a lot of, depending on where in the world you are listening from right now, me being from Minnesota, I think of a cottage like, okay, cottage is like a traditional little lakefront. It's maybe tucked away in the woods. It's probably like 1,500 to 2,500 square feet. You use it seasonally. Maybe it has AC, maybe it doesn't. And
yeah.
like, then you're like, oh, $10 million cottage. So like, how would you describe a cottage if you had to describe, like what's your range of services? And B, what do you define as a cottage? How would you describe what a cottage is? Because when you threw me with the 10 million, I'm like, dang, that's not a
Yeah,
cottage.
it's no, it's not a cottage. I agree with you that the way you described it is very much a cottage. They call it cottage country up here. They call it Muskoka, but it is very much where a lot of the rich and famous and wealthy people are building not a cottage, but maybe a
Yeah.
second, a third, a fourth residence up here and spending significant money. I don't think you could ever go wrong in doing that. Just it's not there's never going to be the situation where the cost of being on the lake is going down up here or the
Right.
cost of your place. Yes, you could build some crazy design that nobody ever wants, which some people do, but that's that's kind of what's up here. You're coming up here to come up to Muskoka to be on those lakes. Some of the people who do have genuine like family cottages up here, they're not too fond of people coming up here and making noise for 2.5 years to build their huge place, but everybody had their place built at some spot
Well, it's
sometime.
true. I
So
mean, regardless of, builders everywhere can relate to that to some degree. I mean, if you're on the
mhm,
coast, right, west and east coast, obviously those lakefront or oceanfront, there's a finite supply. I mean, in Minnesota, we have,
right,
our tagline is the land of 10,000 lakes. We've got a lot of lakes. So,
right,
it's kind of the same deal. The lakes, it's never going to go down in value. Kind of like it's never going to be less expensive to build a house in the future. Like I had a client the
exactly.
other day that told me, they said, hey, when is the best time to build? The best time to build was last year. The second
Yeah,
best time to build is today, and the worst time to build is tomorrow.
yeah,
That's like,
it is true. Yeah,
I understand it's a bit of a sales line, but it's also kind of true because like costs just don't go down.
no,
One of the questions I was curious about, you have mainly just 'cause I love travel and you traveled a lot, especially when you were younger and you're still young now. But like,
mhm.
you were on Ontario with Braymark Homes, and then it says you're at what's YWAM ships in Kona, Hawaii. That was like, wait a minute, you
Why?
building? Yeah, you were in
No, no,
Hawaii.
no, no, not. I'm not a shipbuilder in Hawaii, but
Oh, I was
so
on
it's
your
called
link.
yeah, it's called YWAM. Basically, so the one that you described, the ships one, that is a separate one. So you can go and volunteer for this organization called YWAM, where in Hawaii they have one specifically called ships, where like you're literally on a sailboat for months and months. But, but basically, out of high school, I'd been encouraged. That's kind of my time to go and do what I want and to see what I want. And I am very thankful that I got that advice. Just as a business owner, once you get into it, then it's 7 days a week nonstop. But yeah, so essentially out of high school, I took that opportunity. I didn't have very much money saved up or anything, so I was trying to find some organizations and cool spots where I could go and see a country like Hawaii and meet some other people my age and everything to at a very low cost. So there's this organization called YWAM. Their biggest headquarters is in Hawaii, and you would go there and you would work 5 days a week, and then they would put you up in housing. They would give you all your food. And then I got to know some people through that. And on the weekends and stuff like that, we would go around traveling Hawaii basically. So it was a bit of a, I don't know if you would call it a hippie stage, but
Yeah, no, no. It's a
it
walkabout.
was, yeah, it was definitely fun, cool to see, cool to meet some other people. And then, so I was there for about 6 months, and then I flew right from there to New Zealand. And then in New Zealand, I was working as a framer and farming as while I was over there. And then I met a great family who I ended up staying at their place. They had this little camper van out in the back that had busted out windows in it,
Where
and
in
I
New Zealand
just
were you?
so it was we were near a small town called Cambridge.
Sure, I know where that
Um,
is.
I think. Wait, did you say you know where that is?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think
Oh,
of on the
have you been to
I
New Zealand?
I went to school in Australia for a year, and then we
Oh, okay.
spent a couple weeks in Australia, or sorry, New Zealand. My sister went to school in, is it Wellington, Worthington? What's the main big city in the South Island? It starts with a, I thought it was a W.
I should know this.
Well, anyway, Cambridge was, I can't, because is
Sorry.
Cambridge on the
Yeah,
South or North Island?
I don't know.
Don't
I
remember.
think
Yeah.
it's I don't know.
We spent most of the
Yeah,
time hiking and on glaciers. So I didn't really spend a
yeah,
ton of time up in Auckland or the north area. I just love anytime people tell me or say they're traveling down there. I'm like, oh man, go to New Zealand.
right.
It's
It is
vibrant. It's
beautiful.
it's
Yeah.
it's an
Are you
amazing
thinking of
place.
Queenstown? Is that everything in Queenstown?
No, Queenstown is
No.
further south. We stayed there. No, it
Yeah.
doesn't. Christchurch, sorry, not Cambridge. It
Christchurch.
was
Yeah.
Christchurch was the main
Okay.
town in the South Island. So
Okay.
anyway,
I
but you
did
didn't.
know all the places and what they were called when I was over there, but I
Yeah,
forget
yeah,
now. Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah.
forgets now. Now it sounds like you're reading Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
What does so after you were down, down there for a while, you came back. How old are you when you come back to Canada, or was it
Yeah,
about?
like early
Yeah.
early 20s, similar time I moved up here. So
Mhm.
came back to Canada, knew I wasn't going to school, so knew I was getting back into trades essentially because I wanted to start making money again. I was making well. I came back actually with a lot. When I was in New Zealand, I basically 3/4 of the time just worked nonstop farming. So I came back with quite a bit more money actually. But yeah, so I came back, and then within 2 weeks later, I found a job with the company up here, moved up here into that lady's basement in the middle of the
Yep.
bush there, and started as a carpenter.
You've been in business now for about 6 years. Is that right?
So so Bredin Brothers, like us as a general contractor, is really only a few years old. I started the name Bredin Brothers probably closer to 5 years ago. The first couple of years, though, were we were essentially a carpentry company. We didn't have any clients as a general contractor or as a builder. We would just essentially have our crew of carpenters. We would go to some of the bigger players up here, say, "Hey, are you looking for a sub trade? For framing, exterior finish, interior finish, whatever it was." And
And
so
they were probably happy to hire you because if it's anything like most communities, if you're a couple hours away from quote civilization, having crews that they could depend on to build these big homes, that was probably very advantageous for both parties, you and them. Is that right?
yeah, there is like the Muskoka builders community up here is very big. Like there's tons of contractors, tons of sub trades. So there isn't really there's always the talk of, oh, I can't find guys, that saying in the industry, but there is a lot up here. So it wasn't necessarily like too big of a deal. I don't think
Okay.
that we were coming in as another carpentry trade.
Okay.
But yeah, that's kind of how we started, and then from there, just through advertising and stuff, then we got our first renovation job as a general contractor, and then it essentially all went from you know just a few guys swinging a hammer to what it is now a few years later of 20 20 people full time on salary, or sorry, not on salary, just on payroll. And yeah, we're running about 6 to 8 projects at once, fully as the GC. And yeah, so it's come a long way since just a few years ago, really.
Yeah, I mean, that's super impressive. I was looking at the page, just your company page. I mean, you have a hire page, which obviously it seems like, are you always sort of hiring if that's the right fit?
We are always hiring. I think I've slowed down on that a little bit. Like when you're in the phase of growth like that quickly and the momentum of everything, you are always looking for more people. But then there was a couple bad hires we made, some mistakes we made just through those people and them in management roles and all of this stuff. But yeah, so we are always hiring now, but we're very much so always hiring for the right people now. Not just, hey, we just scored another job, we got to throw 5 bodies over there, and this guy said he's been a carpenter for 35 years, so let's trust him.
Most,
Yeah.
in most of your work, is that coming through architects, designers, directly from homeowners, or what does the scene up there look like in terms of architecture, home design, and
Mhm.
interior design?
Yeah, so as we're getting into these higher clientele, these higher net worth projects and all of that stuff, we found that they're going to the architect and the designer first. They're saying, "Hey, I want to spend a year to two with you designing my cottage, whatever it is." And then at that point, the architect is saying, "Okay, we've got your drawings at a certain point now. Here's 3 builders, GCs that we recommend. Go out and get proposals from each one of them." So we're kind of at that stage now where it's probably like 75% of our stuff. The other is, well, maybe a little bit less than that. The other is word of mouth. And then the other is just somebody reaching out over the website, or they found us on Instagram, or something like that. But most of it, that's been a lot of our key understanding of where our projects are coming from. So real estate agents, interior designers, architects, those are our 3 categories of services that I now try to make relationships with, and yeah, just really sell our services to. And obviously the one of the biggest things when you're a builder is, okay, what's your portfolio? We've only been around for a few years, so we don't have that big of a portfolio yet. There are some, we're currently getting the whole website revamped and everything, but there's another few projects coming up that'll be classified as under construction that'll really put us on the map as well. So yeah, we're getting there.
I was looking, the website was impressive. You had a couple of projects that, and I think I sent you an email back. Were some of them high-end renderings and some of them are actual work? And walk me through a little bit from a marketing standpoint of, I think the one, the was at Lake of Bays was the one I was most
Mm,
attracted to. But when I looked at the trees, I'm like, those look simulated. Is that a project that
yeah.
has been completed, or is that a rendering of what's going to
No,
happen?
yeah, those are renderings. So we have 2 stages on our website. One is completed projects, and then the next phase is now what we're calling under construction featured work. So we're essentially putting those renderings up there to let people know that we are working on larger scale projects. Show a bit of, okay, this is the basement renovation we started with, and then this was a $1.5 million renovation, then this was the $4 million build, and then now these guys are working on 8,500 square foot cottages and $2 million boathouses and stuff like that. So, and that's where we are now. So like that Lake Base one there, that's not a full build, that was a big renovation. So we put about 2.5 into that.
This episode of The Curious Builder is brought to you by Olive and Vine Socials. If you're a builder, a designer, or an architect looking to grow your brand without dancing on TikTok or spending your whole life on social media, listen up. Olive and Vine Socials specializes in Pinterest marketing, blogging, and email strategy for luxury home brands. They help you turn your beautiful work into a strategic SEO-driven content that drives real traffic and connects you with your ideal clients without burning you out. Ready to grow smarter and not harder? Visit oliveandvinesocials.com and tell them the Curious Builder sent you. Just so you know, I've been working with Alyssa over at Olive and Vine for 3 years. She helped us launch the podcast. She's helped us grow our brand at Mark Williams Custom Homes. I could not do what I've done without her help. And I'm more than happy to announce that she's our latest sponsor for the Curious Builder podcast. This episode is brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors. I've used Pella for 21 years as the exclusive window company on every one of my builds. When people ask me who I trust for windows and doors, it's Pella every time. Their craftsmanship, their innovation, the top tier service make them a no-brainer for any custom home builder or designer who demand the best. Whether you're designing something bold or building something with timeless elegance, Pella has you covered. They're also the only window company that has a lifetime warranty on all of their windows. I've gotten to know all of their people at Pella Corporate, as well as locally here at Pella Northland. I'm proud to call them our partners and our friends. Visit Pella.com to learn more and connect with your local reps today. Also, for more information, you can listen to episode 1, where I interview their founders, as well as episode 109, where we talk about the innovation at Pella. Tell me a little bit about boathouses. I've actually never built one. No, I shouldn't say that. We had one that we had to remodel. You know, the laws are super strict around boathouses, at least on the lakes up here. They have to be grandfathered in. Most of the communities, if they're to do new, I'm just thinking like Lake Minnetonka is a big destination similar to, I would imagine, where you're at. And it's the most high expensive, property in Minnesota, other than maybe like Lake Superior or something like that. But anyway, you have to be 75 feet off the lakeshore. So unless it's grandfathered in, you kind of are SOL. How are the laws allowing you to build new ones, or are you only able to
Yep.
sort of modify what's already there?
No, we're allowed to build new ones. The grandfathering is a big part of it, especially if it's like 2 stories or something like that. The one that you see in the background here, that blue boathouse there was an existing 2-story boathouse there before. So that was essentially one of the reasons we ripped that one down and built this new one. That was one of the reasons why they could also get 2 stories again. So each lake does have very strict laws around what, even not even just the boathouse, like what the cottage can be in general, and those are becoming more and more strict. We're not so much involved in those conversations into the fine details of them. That's more of the planning company that would be doing a lot of that.
And is that the
Um,
architect, or what do you mean by planning company?
yeah, so there are services up here that they're called planners, and you would have the architect, you would have the planner, and then you would have the builder. So there
Okay.
are a lot of architects that say, "Hey, we'll get the building permits and all that stuff for you." A lot of them do just sub that out to these planners, and they'll work back and forth with the drawings with the township to essentially get the permits that you're looking for. If there's a minor variance involved or something like that, but yeah.
Some of the boats, I'd love to, just because I'm interested in it. So you've
Hmm.
got the one, I guess it's over your left shoulder. As I'm looking at
Hmm.
this video, it's over your right shoulder.
Yeah.
The blue one. So half of that, let's say, I mean, obviously a boathouse has to be in the water because the boat
Yep.
has to get into it. Are they floating systems? Are you using a pier system? Like, how do you actually build those?
Yeah, so it's all steel piles.
Okay.
So your traditional way of building a boathouse is it's on what's called cribs, which are like wood beams that are stacked on top of each other, and then they're filled with rocks, and then that's what people would put their boathouses on. So a lot of boathouses up here still are on cribs, but 95% of the time, if somebody's saying, "Hey, I want a new boathouse," we're just getting rid of all that, and then we're doing a full steel pile structure. So the barge will come out. There'll be an excavator on the barge. They'll have their steel posts, and then they're drilling those down into the lake bed or into bedrock until you get a certain amount of tension. And then from there, once you have all your posts that are up, then you're putting all your horizontal steel on, all your crossers to support it, and then you're framing
Then
your
you're just
boathouse from there.
building
Yeah,
normal. Do you
yeah,
now I know only because it's funny to remember this from like high school, and it's Hudson Bay has like some of the most ginormous tide changes in the world, if I recall. Do you have any tide changing in on your lakes, or no? I mean, that's a bay
yeah.
obviously going to the ocean, but do you have any tide work that you have to worry about?
Not the only thing we really have to worry about is water levels, but there's essentially nothing that you can do about it. So, for example, like on Lake Muskoka, they drain that lake by quite a bit every single year coming into like the end of summer and into the fall and everything. So that can have a big impact on the water levels of your boathouse. But that's really it. Like they're small enough lakes to the only time you have tide coming through is when you have a few boats going by. And then, you either have a platform lift that sits out of the water and your boat sits on it so it doesn't get affected by that tide, or you have your boat tied up. And yeah, but it doesn't really get too crazy on the water in terms of what's happening there.
Yeah. How do you see, you've got a pretty rapid expansion. I love the stepping stones from carpentry to 20 employees. That's impressive. Where do you see the next 5 to 10 years? What is your vision for the company? And I assume I think you have at least one brother I saw on your.
Yeah.
How many brothers do you have, or how many family members are part of the company?
Yeah, so there's 4 brothers in total. Now, it's only myself and my one brother, Nolan, who are a part of Bredin Brothers. I just named it that because I like the name. I always thought it was cool, like, when you drive past the transport trucks and it'd be, like, something Bros or something and Sons or
Sure.
something like that. Yeah. There's no family history on our side at all of anything to do even with construction. So, it was really myself and my brother who were the first ones to get into any sort of trade and take that route. And then when I started Bread Brothers, yeah, we maybe had like 4 carpenters at the time or something. And then my brother was still working for a different custom home builder as a carpenter. And he eventually said, okay, well, I might as well, join you guys and stuff like that. So it's not like we started the company together and it was even a little bit of convincing to get him to come on board first. I think he wanted to see that I was actually going to do something first.
Right. Did
But
did you have other entrepreneurs in the family?
no, no, yeah.
What
So
made you do you remember what it was that made you say, "I wanna do this on my own," or "I want my own company"?
yeah, I'd always had good conversations with my dad and everything. He's very business oriented. He's a sales guy through and through, and that's kind of what he does. He was in Toronto for decades, just doing his stuff down there. But we had always had conversations growing up of starting a business and just kind of what that entails and this idea and that idea. And I was always, I don't know, compared to the other siblings, I was always described as the one who's a bit of the, not necessarily a black sheep, but, you know, wasn't, nobody could really tell me what to do. And,
I'm
I was,
guessing I'm guessing you had 4 brothers. I'm guessing you're what, the 2nd or 3rd kid? Or are you the 4th?
I'm right in the middle. So four boys, 1 girl. My
Okay.
sister's the oldest.
I assumed you weren't the firstborn, because if you're following the
No, no,
standard
no.
birth order, right, you gotta be a little bit of a rebel. You're 2nd or 3rd, so
Yeah.
there you go.
Exactly. And so I don't know. I had this bit of a bad habit when I was younger. I mean, I was young at the time, so but I'd always have this idea, start something, and then be like, either this is boring or this isn't going to work, and then I would shut that down, and then I would think about something else, and then shut it down, and then think about something else. So I was always battling that growing up of like, okay, what am I going to do? I'm not interested in this. I don't really like school, nor was I really good at it, and yeah, I'm very thankful that I picked the route of the trade and going this route because I really do have a big passion for building, especially custom home building and being up here in Muskoka. And so I'm really trying to create that team and that reputation where we're not just here to have a company. We really are passionate about the industry. And I didn't even really recognize that when I started it. It's obviously a lot of work to grow and to start a business. And I I do think that was some good advice too, like when you're kind of at that stage of, oh, I don't know what I want to do, or I don't know. It's like, well, you got to get going on something, and then you figure out if you like it or not. You can change as many times, but then you get to a certain, if you're starting a business, then you get to a certain point. It's like, okay, either I'm now going to go all in on this, or I'm going to keep going down that path of trying something else. So that's essentially what I did. But it's not, people think they have this hurrah moment of, oh, this is what I was meant to do or my calling. I believe some people do, just I'm definitely not that person. But what always stayed true from when I was young is I'd love to start and run a business.
I think have you thought it only just been on my mind a lot, and,
Mm,
I think like you, I mean, there were certain aha moments, and I've been building now for 21 years, but, you look back and you're like, "Oh, I certainly could have been a lot, farther," but everyone's journey is their own journey, and
mm,
lately I've been sort of obsessed with my why. I read this book by Simon Sinek, Know Your Why, and really just it's very self-reflective of, like, really isolating what is it that you want.
hmm.
Have you had thoughts like that where you're like, "What is my why?" Like, why are you now, today? Because I
Hmm.
ask, like, sometimes people have a very clear picture of what they want their future to be. Maybe
Hmm.
it's a 1, 3, 5-year plan, whatever it might be. Like, if someone was to say, like, what is your why? Like, why do you wake up in the morning? Like, why
Hmm.
are you excited? If you are excited, maybe you're not excited, but, like, do you have an idea of what your why is of
Yeah,
owning a business?
yeah. I think they're kind of two different things. Like if you ask, okay, where do you want to be? Where do you see Bread and Brothers in 5 years and all that stuff? Like I can answer all that, but the why part to me is a little bit different. My faith is a big part of what I do, and just in everything I try to do. I could probably be a lot better at doing certain things, but I think a lot of the core values of what I believe in my faith and in Christianity and all of that is it does roll into to business and into growing a business and to how you treat your employees and to okay, what's actually right and wrong here in treating a client. And I think that's probably the starting point of where my why is. I mean, I've got a young family. My wife Olivia. We got a daughter who's 13 months, another one on the way. So that alone is a lot of pressure to support and grow that.
Yeah.
But I think that's where it stems from. And then there's obviously the family aspect. And I love the aspect of building a team and growing a business and having it all stem from that. I mean, you could say you could be growing a business and say, okay, here's our three core values, and let's go and try and grow that and everything. And so that's kind of where the why part comes from, and it's essentially just creating that environment. Obviously, the money that we pay our employees that feeds their family and everything like that. And I do have a heart for all those people and in treating them fairly and right. And same goes for our clients and everything like that. And other than that, though, I wouldn't say it's much more complicated. Yeah, I know when you hear some entrepreneurs talk and everything, there was like this one moment in their life that changed everything forever. And I just a lot of my journey has been like keep kicking and keep picking away at it. And half the time you're gonna like it, half the time you're not gonna like it. And I don't know when I do look back and think, where we just were a couple years ago with Bredin Brothers and all that stuff. Obviously, I've been doing something right to get it to this point. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of
Yeah,
the
I mean, I hate to break it to you. You're the high point. Coming on the Curious Builder podcast is probably the height of your career. I mean, it's downhill from the rest
yeah,
of the way. And
exactly. Yeah.
I think what's interesting hearing you talk, like I did not have a clear idea of what my why was. I was just completely unaware of it. I was kind of like, just keep swimming or just keep running or the next thing. And so it's like, I'm not personally a very self-reflective person. I think as I've gotten older, I probably have done a better job of pausing. And it's why we started the Curious Builder boot
Mhm.
camp or just getting away. Because I think sometimes you have to zoom out to zoom back in. And that old saying, are you focused on the tree or the forest? And I feel
Yeah.
like as entrepreneurs, we sort of need either people. Sometimes it's events in our lives. Maybe it's obviously you're in the young phase here of having small children. So there's that. Like now you're like, oh
Mhm.
man, I've got to provide. And then, lots of people, there's things that happen in their families, parents get sick or whatever it is. And like life
Mhm.
happens to all of us. And someone asked me this morning, I was running, and Tony, a guy who I run with a lot and bike with a lot, and just evidently I just spent a lot of time with him exercising. But he said, hey, I think I've interviewed, this might be like 125, 126 people we've interviewed now in the
Wow.
last 2.5 years. And he said, do you find that there's a common theme that you've observed? And actually, you just nailed it, which is, I think what defines entrepreneurs is very rarely does someone, in my opinion, know their why immediately. I think it takes some self-reflection and time to figure it out. And if you know it, kudos to you, because I think having a clear why is like a superpower. Like if you know very clearly and very simply what your why is, like I think those are game changers at moments. But I think for the rest of us, for most of us, it's kind of like you figure it out in the years that happen, and like you gotta figure
Yeah.
it out. And for you, it's something my dad used to always tell me. He was a business owner, and he used to always say, "Steady at the helm." And that was my answer this morning running. Was I think what defines most entrepreneurs is high tide, low tide, storms, sunshine, good times, bad times, making a lot of money, not making a lot of money. Like they're just sort of steady at the helm. It's kind of like I can't do anything when it's raining. I'm out
Yep.
here. I got 10 more miles to go. What am I going to do? I'm just going to keep walking. It's sunny and hot out. There's not much more I can do. I got 10 more miles. Like the answer really doesn't change anything. Like, sure, it's a little bit more happy probably if it's not,
Yeah.
pouring on you. But at the end of the day, like it doesn't really change what you have to do. And I sort of marvel at our industry. Right now, it's just brutally hot here for us. I hate the humidity. It's like 97% humidity where I'm, and it was just gross. And I'm just thinking of all these really hard roofers and framers and concrete guys and excavators just sweating the just and they don't complain. They just
Yeah.
keep going. And I'm like, I think it defines our industry, honestly, is sort of that plucky attitude of just going to keep going. And it's remarkable.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah, especially when you're the owner, you get hit with everything. So, but you still have to have your goals and you still have to have your path to get
Mhm.
those. And if you let any little thing, knock you off that path, then, it's probably not going to work out as being an entrepreneur in all honesty.
hmm I think I had this thought the other day. I'll be down in Texas next week at the Sun Belt Conference, and I've got to I don't even know how many builders are going to be there, but I was going to I'll ask you this question. I've talked about a lot on the podcast. I probably have undiagnosed ADHD, but like, I kind of want to have a show of hands, like how many people in the audience has some form of ADHD. And the reason where I'm going with this is like, honestly, most business owners that I know are like hyperactive, have a hard time focusing on one thing for long periods of time. But in business, we're constantly being bombarded with,
Mhm.
oh, hey, you're short here. Oh, client issue here, subcontractor issue here, employee issue. It's almost like a superpower because, and
Mhm.
it's like when you don't have that stimulus, when things are actually steady, you kind of get
Mhm.
this weird idle, like, no, there's no issues right now. I don't even know what to do because, and there's this thought process like, oh man, if I had more time, if I had like a week, like this dream scenario, if I had a week where I could just focus on the business.
Yeah.
Well, newsflash, if you got a week, you're probably not focusing on the business because you're probably like, I got nothing to do. I'm
Yeah.
gonna take it off. And so anyway, how would you respond to sort of that, that,
Oh, 100%.
yeah.
100, like my even to this point, I'm still trying to figure out like how well, I kind of know how I do now, but just how I learn and then how I actually get something done. I'm very much a list guy. Like if I don't have at least two, three lists going, then things aren't getting done. Every single meeting, it's just taking notes so I don't forget them. And you have to do that when you're, running across multiple projects. But yeah, I 100% resonate with that. And you're right. Like part of that skill is okay, you have all the noise coming in of running a business, and then you need to figure out of all that, what are these three tasks out of the 150 that I need to pick, move forward with in order for things to keep progressing. And then as we get more and more employees, now that has changed from okay, it's not just me doing that. How do I teach other employees to do that? How do I say, hey, I got to still stay focused here, but you're our PM who's running five projects on the go right now. You also have to figure out okay, how am I filtering that noise and what do I need to focus on right now? Because for me, my attention span is like next to nothing. Even when I come in here, if there's something I know I just have to get it done, it's close the window, shut the door, and hey, unless a house is burning down right now, like just leave me in here for an hour. But
Let's talk about that because it's actually very similar to, have you ever heard of the book or read it, Eat That Frog?
no.
It's a book, and I joke, unless you're Canadian, or sorry, French Canadian or French, like eating frogs is probably not part of your normal cuisine. And so the book is actually a very thin book. It's a great book, but basically the premise is like, do the thing that you don't want to do first. So eating a
Mm,
frog. And every Monday I have this little calendar thing I use. I like lists too. And so that's what made me think of it. And I'll write
mm,
down the four kind of frogs of the week. Like, what are four things that I probably don't want to do them, but they're like, I know like they'll move the needle, like important things. And then of course all
mm,
my lists, because most entrepreneurs I would imagine can relate to this. Like, we love crossing stuff on off the list. So you
yeah,
create your
yeah.
whole list for the whole week. And if I'm honest, a lot of times I don't focus on the top four. Because the satisfying of just follow up with this brand or send this person email or schedule this. It's like, it's easy that you get kind of a dopamine hit of crossing off all the little things when really the whole premise of the book is don't do a single item until all four of those things are done. And they might be big, it might be a proposal, it might be whatever it might be for a client, or
Mm,
doesn't matter what it is. It's everyone's thing is their own. Like, I hate doing contracts. I just hate it.
right.
And
Yeah.
so it's just so minute and so detailed and so focused, and I'm better up in the clouds and kind of the visionary seat for me. But if you can do those Monday and Tuesday, then even if nothing else happens the rest of the week, you've had a successful week and you move the needle. I'm just curious. You mentioned like lists. How do you handle your lists, or how do you handle sort of making sure that you're staying on task for these important things that have to be done? Is it time blocking? Is it prioritization?
Yeah, it's all priority. So what I do is those frogs that you're talking about, I try to get those done. So if I'm not having client meetings on Saturday, then I basically try to take off half the day Sunday, and then I'm usually back here in the office for preparing my week and everything. Depending on how big, what those might be, I try to get them done during that time. Or if I'm here, way later than everybody and there's people not distract me, then I try to get those done. But it's the same cycle for me. So I create a whole list because I'm also a person where when I know something needs to happen and it's now on my mind, if I'm not either getting it done right now or I'm not putting it on the list, then it'll probably pop up in my mind not until next week again. So each week as the week is going on, I'm creating basically another list for what the next week I want to get done. And then what I do with that list, because it is very sporadic, like just sometimes when something comes up and I write it down, the night before each day, I then take that full list and I not necessarily the frogs if I don't want to do them, but I'll take, okay, what's the five things that have to happen Monday? And then hopefully I get those done. If not, they probably go into the next day. But so I'm essentially taking like that master list and then breaking that down into more achievable goals of what I can finish daily. And that's how I keep track of things because if I with the size of the list that I have to do every week, if I'm just staring at that huge list every single morning, thinking, okay, what's number one here? What do I need to be getting done? Just probably a little bit of that ADHD that you were talking about, like that. It I don't get things done doing it that way. So yeah, I basically have two lists, one master list, and then each day that list gets broken into a smaller one.
What are you keeping it on? Is this a notebook? Is this digital format? How are you tracking all these?
Yeah, so it's usually either just my Google Calendar and then a combination of notebook or just the notes on my phone if I'm out somewhere. But
Yep.
I retain things a lot better when I do write them down. So that master list, I try to write it down in my notebook each day and then I kind of pick away at it. I just put them on my phone here in notes and then I'll leave it on my desk and then I'll be like, all right, there's one done, two done, three done.
This episode is brought to you by Adaptive. If you're still chasing checks and juggling spreadsheets, it's time to upgrade. Adaptive is revolutionizing how builders get paid with AI-powered bill pay, automated draws, one-click payments, and built-in lien waivers. Faster payments, fewer headaches, and total visibility. Adaptive takes care of the back-end chaos so you can focus on what you do best, building. We've used Adaptive for 2.5 years and trust them to keep our projects moving and payments flowing. Learn more at adaptive.build and simplify the pay process today. For more information, you can also listen to episode 10 and episode 15. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while now, or even if this is your first episode, I talk about the Contractor Coalition Summit all of the time. Our next one is happening November 7th through November 10th in Chicago. And all the details can be found at the contractorcoalitionsummit.com. You've got Brad Levitt, Nick Schiffer, Tyler Grace, Morgan Molitor, and myself will all be there. We've got great content over 3 days. You've got builders from all over the country. Try to get it to about that 30 people number. And we'll have sponsors as well that add a lot of value to each one of these dedicated days where you're talking about contracts and spreadsheets and margin and whether you're doing fixed bid or cost plus, your pre-construction agreements. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. If you haven't been following it yet, you should. The Contractor Coalition Summit Instagram page is giving you a steady diet of the conversations that are being had, a lot of promo reels, a lot of the interviews that I've done personally at Omaha, which was my first Contractor Coalition where I'm part of the leadership. I interviewed all 36 people that attended, and we're going to be unveiling each one of their interviews over the next couple of months. So people that were not able to attend and would like to can kind of get a better idea of the value that builders are getting. So if you're going to sign up and come to Chicago, you can type in the promo code Curious Builder and get $2,500 off, and we'll see you in Chicago. You're working a lot. You've got a young family, Saturdays, half day Sundays. Is it because your clients are coming into town on the weekends and that's the only time they can meet, or what's the thought process on working on Saturdays and Sundays?
Yeah, it's a combination of both because it is a cottage, a seasonal residence. A lot of them aren't coming up here until it's a weekend. So that is very much part of it. The other part of it is just we're so busy and continuing to grow the company. And I now have another business called Bredin Developments where we're now essentially acting as the developer as well. So there's right in town here, stacked townhouse development that we're doing. It's 12 units. I just put an offer in for 14 building lots plus 11 acres that's along with it. And so that's kind of the start to Bredin Developments as well, and trying to, yeah, just take some of those funds and keep that going, but also act on the development side as well. But my 90% main focus is Bread and Brothers. Like, we've got a long ways to go still, and I want to continue to grow that reputation for, the next 20 years, whatever it is. But I'd also love to have something on the go where we're starting to do some of our own developments too.
What is if someone came to you today and said, "Hey, I want you to start. How far out is your guys with 20 guys? How far out is your backlog?"
So if they said, "Hey, we've got everything in place, permits are in place, we've got the drawings, we know what we're looking for, could you start mid fall?" We probably could. Now that's just because of the number of guys that we have, and it depends on the job. Like, some we would automatically just say, "No, we're not starting until 2026 sometime." But I have found, like, with running that amount of people, you almost really do need to overbook a little bit. Not essentially overbook, but when you're in the lead stage of telling people, "Hey, when you could start," nobody's booked that time slot yet. So if there's 6 houses I'm putting proposals on together right now, I'm going to tell all
Right.
you that
The
we could
same
start
time.
mid fall.
Yeah.
And then if you take it, now that's a year gone. So now you're pushed to 2026. But you, yeah, I found like that funnel just has to, it has to keep moving to keep guys going and to keep growing the business as
Yeah.
we have. And so, yeah.
Have you experienced where if you don't feed the funnel, then you see it shorten up, or have you not experienced that?
Not really, because I'm very much sales oriented.
Yep.
So that's what I think about 75% of the time.
Yeah.
Just follow up all the time. Not to the
Mhm.
point where it's annoying. Like, these
Yeah.
are, when you're dealing with an expensive emotional asset like a cottage or a family cottage, whatever it is, you don't want to be annoying. So, and you want to, my follow-ups, like, they're not, "Hey, I'm just following up, are we building or not?" It's all service oriented. "Hey, just wanted to touch base about our last email thread there. We do have one or two guys who are wrapping up early. The next Friday, I know you mentioned that there's a couple small things that you needed done over at your existing cottage. Like, do you want me to send some guys over there?" Or something like that.
Right.
Like, every follow-up is prompting a response, but it's all service based. Like, "Hey, I'm here if you need me. I'm here if you need me." And yeah, just showing them what our service is going to be before we even start the project, without being annoying.
I'd love to get your perspective, and I mean, you can go this wherever you want with it. It's not meant to be a little really a political show, but the
Mhm.
point of it is like obviously the last year has been super tumultuous from our side, in the United States. You're in Canada. I'd love to get your perspective. All we hear about down here is tariffs this and tariffs that. And I mean, and my clients ask me all the time, "Hey, Mark, do I have to be worried about tariffs?" And I'm like, I don't know. They change every 30 days or every 10
Yeah.
weeks it's just, they're constantly changing. I don't even know. And it's like, I'm running a small operation building 4 to 6 homes. It's not like I have a direct line to DC. And even if I did, I'm not sure it would do any good anyway. But we hear all this stuff. And maybe instead of your window companies giving you once a year, usually in January, I think is your annual couple percent raise, like we're seeing, hey, it's going up 5% or 6%, we're seeing a gradual incline. And like a lot of our stuff, at least in the United States, we're getting a lot of the stuff is domestic, but not all of it, obviously. A lot, especially
Mhm.
like, computer chips, appliances, things like that. We do a lot of Wolf Sub Zero, which is out of Wisconsin, but a
Yep.
lot of their
Yep.
parts are coming from China. I'm just
Mhm.
curious, in Canada, what what are you experiencing in terms of like tariff and price volatility on your side of the border?
I think so. There's two sides to it. Down in Toronto, for example, there's like a record number of condos that are just sitting there, and they've been sitting there for so long, nothing's selling. Developers are saying, "Hey, we'll give you we'll pay for half of a new vehicle if you just come by our condo and stuff like that. Even further down that way where
Hang on,
there's,
let me ask a question on
yeah,
that then. So it's been done. So pricing tariffs haven't really affected that. So the unit is ready to buy. Why did you like down here? We have a major housing shortage, meaning we're in
yeah.
Minnesota alone. We're 100,000 units short of what our population needs, which drive costs and make it more unaffordable. Are you saying in Toronto that you have an abundance of and not enough people, or what is that? What? Why are these not selling?
No, so there's kind of two things happening specifically Ontario. Like you guys, we need X amount more houses by this date, and it's a crazy amount. It's like it's an unrealistic number. So we need more houses. But the other part of that is that the cost of living over here is extremely unaffordable. So, and what is happening kind of with, like, I don't know if it started with the tariffs or before the tariffs, but whatever happens in the States, like, we just kind of always sit here and we wait to see what happens. Like, there's not much action being taken. There's not, we wait to see what happens. And so during that time of us waiting to see what happens, which is the stage we're in right now, nobody's buying anything. Those big developments, they're huge projects. Those were getting built through COVID. So they did pay a premium on materials because that very much was a thing. Also during that time, even up here, people were paying an insane amount above market value for houses just to get into them. And now there's this situation where there's more and more coming to the market. Nothing is selling. And unfortunately, a lot of people are going to lose their shirts because a lot of those people were when they bought in COVID and they had no choice but to sell. But the issue is, even when they sell at what is soon going to be the new market value, they're going to lose all their money.
So if you mentioned that, so let's use an example. Let's say you buy a home, what, 500,000, 600,000, million, whatever it is, in what, 2022. So let's call it a year
Mhm.
after COVID. If you sell it today, is it break even, above, below? What do you mean by losing their shirts?
Yeah, so specifically up here in, even just in Huntsville, like small little town, Muskoka, there were places that any other time it would probably sell for say 500,000, and the people who purchased the house, they, like, there were people on a $5,000 home paying an extra 350 grand for the home. Some even
Whoa.
yeah, like it's ridiculous. So that's a whole nother small house. But it's not like it's all these wealthy people buying these homes. It was people who needed a home at the time. It was people with, hey, let's bring family money together so we can, get into this house and everything. And so it was crazy.
So it's
And
hype. I don't know. I believe this is the right term, hyperinflation. I mean, essentially you had, I mean, not totally, but basically super inflated prices
yeah,
but so now let's say you bought that house for 850, it should have sold for 500. You're saying today they couldn't sell it for 850 because they paid too much for it. So what are they paying for it today? Or what are they selling for it today if they were to sell it then? This example.
probably a lot closer to what it really should be.
Really?
And that's the correct,
You're
yeah.
seeing a massive price correction then.
Yeah, there are people who like are literally foreclosing on their houses, and they're like, "Well, I don't know what you want me to do. Like, I can't pay this difference off." And so now that's not everybody. Like, that's an extreme example, but
Sure.
that stuff was happening. I'm not looking into every single market in Ontario, but if that's happening in a small town of Muskoka and Huntsville, I'd have to imagine it was happening everywhere else. And I did see that stuff happen firsthand. So that is personal experience. But now, going back to the tariffs part, I think it caused so much uncertainty over here, and it still kind of is. And so more is coming to the market, more is coming to the market, more is coming to the market, and nothing's selling because everyone's too scared of what's going to happen. And so if I go on, the realtor website right now and I look at all the houses up here, in my opinion, 75% of them are still way too high. And it's not even my opinion. You can see how long they've been on the realtor website for. And they're just, some people still think because of that time, oh, I'm going to get this much for my house, or I'm going to get this much for that. And it's absolutely not the case. And so the market correction, which always happens, as you know, is more comes to the market, more comes to the market. People need to sell, so they start dropping their prices. Those places do sell, then the value of stuff comes back down to what the new market value is. And it's what needs to happen, to be honest. Like, it's just still too expensive for
What about when you're building new stuff? So let's talk about, I mean, appliances or
mhm.
windows, or I'm not sure what if you had to guess. I mean, I don't even know what mine is, so it's hard for me to guess you. But like, what percentage of the things that you buy are made in Canada? Do you think?
That we buy, like, for these custom cottages,
Yeah,
or more
yeah.
so in general.
No, no, not in
Um,
general. That's a maybe another podcast about
yeah, they're kind of two
socioeconomics. That's
different. Yeah,
beyond that's beyond my understanding and knowledge base. Let's stick to
yeah.
construction. So like you're doing a remodel on a boathouse. Let's call it a $500,000 boathouse or a remodel or whatever. What percentage of the goods that are going into that home do you think are domestically produced in Canada?
Yeah, close to, I don't know, probably close to 50%, maybe a little bit
Hmm.
less. So
And
you could go almost up to 100% if you wanted to buy Canadian only. But
Mhm.
once again, like I just said, a part of the conversation is just the cost of things over here. So, there's lots of windows and doors that come from the States. A lot of our heating and cooling systems come from the States. We're just wrapping up a cottage. It's all sub-zero appliances in there. A lot of it, but you can get fantastic windows that are Canadian made. Canada produces a lot of steel. Canada produces obviously a lot of lumber. Canada produces a lot of glass. But the issue is they're not necessarily like big enough outfits, a lot of these companies, to where they can be as competitive as some stuff that come from the States or from Europe or China, wherever they're coming from. But I would say, like, in terms of products that we use, probably about half of
Yeah.
it is Canadian.
Do you have a push for buy Canadian? Like, obviously,
Hmm.
with the current administration here in the United States, and I'd say, I mean, there's definitely certain manufacturing. Let's just say even 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. I mean, obviously, there's a part of it where they market to, and I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's more I'm just commenting on like what I see in marketing, which is
Yeah.
like, hey, it's American made. Which obviously, if I'm a manufacturer that says I'm American made, my value proposition is support your country, support
Yep.
your local people, like and I get that concept for sure. I'm just curious, like, what kind of, is that a very prevalent marketing in construction, like buy Canadian?
It is. And that's it. The answer is no until the tariffs happened. Then everybody, was Canadian made, Canadian owned, Canadian, like, they really started, and
Right.
it was honestly a nice thing. Like, Canada manufactures and builds and creates fantastic products. And so it was nice to see that. We did have a couple clients where they were like, even if this is 20% additional, if it's Canadian made, we want to go with that. You obviously have to be in a certain position, which, our clients are, to make those decisions. There's other clients where it's just, I want best product for best price. As much as I can, that makes sense for us at Bread and Brothers, I would always choose Canadian. But if it's a superior product that isn't Canadian, and there's a significant cost difference, like, in terms of a business decision, you kind of have to make that choice. But there's plenty of fantastic suppliers, even local here to Muskoka, like Muskoka Lumber and Muskoka Rock, and they manufacture and produce, beautiful products in that industry there. And a lot of the cottages up here are built with those products. But yeah, it's as much as I can is my
Mhm.
answer.
It's really just, I think you said it earlier, it's just uncertainty. I think of the corporations that we buy from, and I'm involved with maybe more than some, just in terms of brand representation, and a lot to do with what I do with the Curious Builder. Just I get to talk to probably more corporate companies than I would have thought, for sure, more
Mhm.
than I did 3, 4 years ago before I had the Curious Builder platform. And it's just interesting. I talk to their executives and where they're buying, and there's just uncertainty. And I think just in general business, there's not anything new, regardless of what it is. People want to know certainty. You talk about weather. If you know it's
Yeah.
cold, like, you know how to dress. If you know it's hot, you know how to dress. But like, if
Mhm.
you don't know. You kind of have to be prepared for both. I mean, we have similar, obviously, winter climates, but which is there's whole different levels of cold. Was it cold, cold, or is
Yeah,
it cold, cold? And I
yeah,
actually I have this Carhartt insulated jacket that I keep in my truck. And on those cold, usually we're not going to make the client sit outside when it's minus below zero, but
yeah,
every once in a while, you're used to your office or your truck or whatever, and you do a electrical walkthrough. And as the owner, you're asking your clients to sit out. You're like, dang, it's really cold.
yeah,
It's colder than my normal midweight puffy and shell. Like I've got an
yeah,
extra jacket I can throw over my other two jackets to make sure, like, okay, I'm not going to freeze to death here. But I know it just that was a silly analogy for uncertainty.
yeah.
Uncertainty is just not good really for anybody, and it's hard because we are obviously a service industry. We are servicing our
Mhm.
clients. They're asking us to bring, even bidding a project until I have plans and a design. I have a client right now who's very nervous about what it's going to cost. And like, I all I can give you is parameters, but if they're not that great until I actually get a price test, it's really hard
Mhm.
for me to tell you exactly. Then I can't really do value engineering or really dig into how I can help you. And uncertainties just causes some people are better with uncertainty than others.
For
So,
sure. Yeah, we are like all those conversations we were happening, like that's kind of as a real estate market as a whole in Ontario. With relation to Bredin Brothers, we are very fortunate that our clients, this is a third, second, third, fourth home for them. So it's not to say that the budget doesn't matter, like especially for those people, the budget absolutely does matter. That I don't like that misconception where it's
right.
like, oh, well,
Agree.
they're worth a few hundred million, so they don't care. They're worth that for a reason. Trust me, they care, and they'll be the sticklers about it. And so it's not so much the budget, or sorry, it is very important the budget, but they're at a certain point in their lives where because of the market, if their place is going to cost an additional 10% as a whole, as to if they waited a few years or if they did it a few years earlier, they're still going to move forward with the project. So
Mhm.
I didn't even really think of that when I moved up here and I started Bread and Brothers, that I really was entering into not a recession proof market, but these are luxury items, and luxury items are treated a lot different than other industries. And yeah, like it sucks to hear about builders who build subdivisions and all that stuff further down south who haven't sold a place in a year and a half, whatever it is, or they're just moving so slow and it doesn't make sense to drop their numbers or something. But we keep growing and keep growing that clientele up here, and I'm very thankful that I kind of made that decision.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine at the homeowners who are having multiple homes, they're not bank financing these remodels anyway. They're likely paying cash or out of money market accounts. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we don't really know, to be honest, like
Right.
how they're, but yeah, I'm assuming 95% of them are. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
want to respect your time as well as the audiences. Maybe we'll just do two last questions. One
Sure.
is, other than the birth of your child, which is by far the coolest news, what else are you looking forward to business wise or personal wise here for the second half of the year?
Yeah, definitely the growth of Bread and Brothers. We've got some pretty crazy projects that are coming up and some that are even crazier that are kind of in the works. So we're working hard to seal the deals on those. Those would really put us into the next category and turn a lot of heads up here, especially in like the Muskoka builders community, being like, what? Those freaking Bread and Brothers got that project. But so I'm very excited for that. Bread and Developments, which I had talked about. There's a couple stuff that we're starting with that as well. So I'm excited to get that going. And then on a personal level, yeah, just obviously our young daughter and one on the way, and still trying to make sure that yeah, I'm as involved as I can be. And yeah.
And then my last question is, where do you look for inspiration? Is it reading? Is it YouTube? Is it other builders in your community? Is it other
Mhm.
industries? As you look around at building your business or yourself, what do you
Mhm.
find inspirational?
I'm a big YouTube guy. Like I like that you get the information you need in a short amount of time. I would say it's not so much the a good portion of it is inspiration from the building community, like yourself with this podcast. I know there's a couple other guys in the States who are pretty big, like NS Builders and the Finer Touched Homes guys and everything. I really do like following, which I never really used to when I started it, but following what you guys are doing and just like the summits and the events and all that stuff that you guys hold. They're all the cool ones seem to be in the States. So hopefully we could eventually start something over here. Or, we could fly some
Actually,
of
it's
our
funny.
guys.
It's funny you say that.
Yeah.
I've talked to Caleb about this, about maybe even
Yeah.
doing. Now we got 2, although you're still a couple hours out of Toronto, but we have the Curious Collectives in about 4 states. So, we're in Minneapolis, Arizona, Atlanta, Texas, and next year we'll be in 2 other states. But it'd be cool to go up into Canada, so we could say we're a multinational Curious Builder
That'd be great.
collective.
We'll buy your first set of tickets, so you can count us in. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, you have to, are you a hockey player?
I was
Yeah.
growing up.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore, but I should probably be more active than I am. I'm sitting in front of this computer too much, but yeah.
Yeah. There's the reason I ask is Caleb. So our next Curious Builder boot camp is down in Costa Rica, actually, the end of January. I think we're half sold out, but half the people you just mentioned are coming to it already. Brad's coming.
Yeah, nice.
Brad, he's bringing a couple of his people. Caleb's coming. He's bringing his videographer with from Toronto, so you guys can fly on the same flight. But if you're into that sort of thing, it's like you can look at it on the website. It's last week. I think it's January 25th through the 29th. So it's
okay. I just want to write what's that guy's name who's in Toronto?
Oh, Caleb McDonald with Kings Ridge Building Group.
Kings Ridge. Okay. If he's kind of getting involved with everything that you guys are all doing, it'd be great to connect with him and kind of see what we could make happen as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think if you're, because you're 2-3 hours from Toronto?
Yeah, we're like 2 hours.
4 times a year, it's not that big of a deal. It's a 3-hour commitment.
No. We would, if there was a good building event in Toronto, maybe there are some great ones I probably don't look enough, but we would drive down there in a second. When you build up here in Muskoka, all your projects, like being cottages down these back roads and stuff, like we're used to driving. There's not necessarily a whole lot up here compared to like a Toronto or those cities. So most people up here are used to driving.
Yeah, we're driving a little bit. Well, no worries. Thanks again for coming on the podcast, and we'll have all your information in the show notes, your Instagram, and if people are interested, they can reach out to you, check out what you're doing, and good luck we'll stay in touch, but good luck for the second half of this year.
Yeah, thank you. You as well. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We've had the podcast now for 2.5, almost 3 years now, and we have a consulting page, 1-to-1 consulting. You can book my time for 1 hour. Perhaps you've heard a guest where you like one of the topics. Maybe you want an introduction to some of the guests that I've had on. Perhaps you want to talk about branding or marketing or anything that we've covered on the podcast over the last 2.5 years. You can book a time at curiousbuilderpodcast.com. Thanks for tuning in to the Curious Builder Podcast. If you like this episode, do us a favor, share it with 3 other business owners. The best way that we can spread what we're doing is by word of mouth, and with your help, we can continue to help other curious builders expand their business. Please share it with your friends, like and review online, and thanks again for tuning in.